Welcome to the Niche Pursuits Podcast. Are you ready to discover some niche business ideas that actually work? Well, it's time for a motivational kick to jumpstart your next big idea. Here's your host, Spencer Haas.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Niche Pursuits Podcast. Today, I'm excited to have Hayden Miyamoto on the program. Hayden is an SEO enthusiast and owns a very large portfolio of small niche sites. He has refined his keyword research skills and his ability to rank sites quickly in Google. In particular, since the Google Penguin update, he has been able to refine his processes and is even more successful now. I'm excited to learn what's working for him and why he is doing so well. Hayden, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Spencer. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you taking the time here out of your day to explain, what's working with you with small niche sites. Obviously, since Google Penguin, there's been a lot of changes, and we're going to dive into that. But first, I wanted to get a little bit of background. How did you get involved in building niche sites? What led you to this business?
Sure. Well, I've been in SEO for about 10 years now. I have a couple businesses that I've worked on since then, basically high-end furniture business, and I had a jewelry business at the time. And I guess just under 2 years ago now, I started doing what I called, portal sites for them because the exact match domain benefits at the time were huge. And I noticed that they ranked really quickly, and I amassed more traffic among those portal sites in under 6 months than I had for my actual money sites themselves in over 8 years of SEO at the time. So I decided to try it out on, first with affiliate sites, and then I tried it on AdSense and found that, it was very little work. And from then I just kind of built my own in-house systems to automate every aspect of it and do it in mass. Okay,
so you started out with some furniture sites and things like that, doing SEO for that. And then it evolved into you figuring out how you could expand your business and try it in other niches and other areas. And obviously that's worked for you. Can you tell us how many sites you own right now?
I have about 3,000 sites, almost all exact match domains. As of April or so, the vast majority of them kind of got pummeled by penguins and pandas and other cute animals. And so of the ones that are earning now, I probably have just over about 400. In January and February, I finished a couple tools that I've been working on for months, and those really they were kind of game changers for me. So I'm really pleased with the site's performance on the ones that I picked up in sort of the first quarter of 2012.
Okay, so that's a lot of sites, first of all.
Yeah.
That's for a lot of people listening out there. I mean, when you start getting into the thousands, how do you even keep track of all those sites is probably what they're thinking. And myself, I have a measly 200 to 300 sites, so I'm nowhere at your level, but it sounds like you were doing well before Penguin, and then Penguin hit, and quite a bit happened to your business.
Yeah, I mean, I always kind of expected, like you said, when you have that many sites, how do you keep track of them? You don't. Basically, you set and forget.
Right.
Unless you have, a couple sites that are just doing spectacularly, you pretty much, it's a process, right? It's just an iterative process. And I would just go and, I would try to buy about 200 to 300 sites a month and just try to constantly improve on the formula until I hit gold, basically. And I mean, at the time I was, I would be content if the sites on average earn maybe $10 a month each. And I had some other revenue streams as well. But yeah, like I said, I mean, I kind of did find my way in the beginning of this year.
Mm-hmm. So maybe you can tell us how were your sites doing, let's say at the end of last year, as far as, how much were they earning, and then let's compare that to how they're doing now.
Okay, so at the end of last year, I had, let's say, around 2,500 sites, give or take. And they were probably, in AdSense, I was probably getting about somewhere between 20 and 25,000 a month off of those sites. And then I also I sold text links, and I had other revenue streams that maybe made up half of that, another half. So maybe in total it was 30 to 35.
Very nice. No, that's a good amount, definitely, for anybody listening there. And then Google Penguin hit, and quite a bit changed. Was there a period there where your income dropped significantly?
Yeah, very significantly. It was. I'm glad I had sort of the other income streams and text links and stuff like that, because AdSense dropped to next to nothing. 95% drop, something like that. And this happened, I guess, in April, and I was kind of down about it. But then afterwards, I started adding AdSense to the new sites that I had built, and I was no longer upset.
Now, that's pretty impressive. Google Penguin really, wasn't very long ago. It was only a couple of months ago. We're talking here, having this conversation in the middle of June, and so it's really only been about 2 months. So that makes me wonder how you were able to build up your income so quickly. And I guess we're going to go into your process here in some of the future questions that I have. But so essentially within a 2-month period of time, you were able to build up 400 sites is essentially what you have that are earning well now, right?
Yeah, though it's important to distinguish. It wasn't a 2-month period, but the sites that are earning well now were sites that I developed before Penguin hit, and Penguin just didn't hit them.
Okay.
So I developed them they were kind of my phase 2, if you will, and I developed them in kind of January, February. So it was a 2-month period, but it did take a couple months until I started seeing the revenue from them, which happened to be just after Penguin hit.
Okay, that makes sense. And so I take it that those sites that were not hit, those 400 or so, you started to change some of your tactics for ranking them in Google once you saw what happened in Penguin.
Yeah, I had changed my I had actually changed the tactics in terms of link building them before Penguin hit. The main difference there was I changed my tactics, my acquisition tactics, I guess. So I had finished a tool that sort of helped me choose strong earning yet extremely low competition sites out of a huge list of millions of keywords. And then I also finished a tool that would find great sources of links for them. And so those two things combined really created the phase 2, I suppose.
Okay, and we're going to dive into those tools and processes that you use here in just a second. But give us an idea of how big is your typical site as far as number of articles on the site.
So this is also kind of a process for me. My first step is I'll launch a site and I add one piece of content, and that's it. And that's when I start link building. Once the site's ranked and I see that it's earning well, then I add more content, and it really depends on how well it's earning. So I kind of have a filter. That's my filter in adding more content. Some sites I have 15, 20 pieces of content. Others have 3. Basically, if a site is earning decently, maybe over $30 a month, then I'll always add a minimum of 5 good pieces of content, design a unique banner, give it a little bit of love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you'll add maybe 5 articles, as you said, for a site that's earning $30 a month, and then sort of see how it does, I take it, and if it continues to increase, you might add some additional articles down the road.
Yeah, my filter is pretty much if the site's earning more than 100 a month, then I give it, I'll go for really good quality articles, something that actually provides a lot of value to the user. Usually it's not so much number of articles, but mainly, I guess, the quality of the article, and they tend to be a lot longer, 1,000-word article, sticky to the homepage.
And how long would your article be on a site that you just start? You say you have one piece of content out there.
400 words.
400 words. Okay. Interesting. So not a real long article, just a sort of an average article that you'll put there, and if it's ranking, then you'll improve on that. That's some good advice, an interesting tactic that some people out there may or may not want to use, depending on what type of sites they're building. Now, really, what is the most important part of building these niche sites for you? You talked about the keyword research part. You talked about link building. We talked about the content on the site. Why are you being so successful at this? What's really the key to this?
Well, I think the biggest change is how I selected sites. So the process of what niche you want to select. And I looked, and I know you're one of the few people who really push this, but it's competition. How much organic competition is there on that particular result?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, for me, absolutely, that's the most important. I also at that time I started using the spreadsheet. That was kind of like a calculator as to how much the sites would earn, and I combined that with the competition, and that's sort of those two combined were extremely important. And I think there are lots of niches out there that will earn good $50-$100 a month and don't even require a single backlink. They're that uncompetitive. The trick is finding them. And if you do expand and you want to go after heavier niches and you want to get those $1,000 a month sites, then I think the next key is owning your backlinks. But we can go into that a bit later.
Yeah, we will. I want to re-emphasize the importance of keyword research here. Of course, I've talked about that for a long time. That really is what led to my success, I feel, was not anything else that I did necessarily. I've never really done anything special as far as the links that I build to my site per se, but I have been able to really analyze the top 10 results within Google and understand how competitive those results are, and it gives you a very good feel to know if you can rank for that keyword or not. Is there any one particular or two particular metrics that you look at when you try to determine which results in Google are competitive and which are not?
Yeah. So I mean, if one wanted to do this themselves, sort of manually, there are a few tools, free tools out there that you can use. I mean, I guess the first thing I'll look at is whether the results have the exact title tags, and also whether they have a lot of domains that already have the keyword within the domain ranking. Those are two things that most sort of competitive keyword research tools don't cover, and so often you'll have to look at that manually. So those are the first two things I look at, and then the other thing I use is SEO Moz has a keyword difficulty tool. You can register for a free account and use it for 30 days, and I look at the page authority, which is sort of their metric as to how much authority that specific page has.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. And of course, this conversation about analyzing the competition, this could be a whole, hour, 2 hour long sort of discussion, because it's, yes, there are tools that can allow you to sort of automate the process. But a lot of it, if you're doing it more manually, where you have to, just sort of look at the number of links or the, whether the keyword is in the title and things of that, you have to have some experience. You have to know what you're looking for in order to do it well.
For sure. I mean, this is really, it's an iterative process, right? So you learn from your mistakes and, you keep getting better at it. And
Absolutely.
I have
Absolutely.
to inflate your ego for a second, though, and just say that it was because of you that I'm successful. Because when I first started doing this, I was really mainly looking as the exact match domain as my criteria, and then after reading a lot of your advice on keyword research, that's sort of when I decided, okay, I'll build this. I'll do it this way, and I'll build this tool, and that was really the difference. So thank you, Spencer.
Wow. Thank you. That's always good to hear. No, thank you for that. So it's good to know that I'm not just sort of saying things that don't work, but they do work. So
Yeah.
I appreciate that. As far as search volume and cost per click, what are you looking at? Do you have any minimums?
So, first of all, one big thing I need to stress is do not look at the cost per click on search. You have to look at the contextual targeting tool cost per click, which I found is much, much more accurate. So that's sort of the first thing. What I look at is I have this calculator that sort of it spits out a number as to how much I expect to earn based on my average SERP CTR, my average click-through rate, and my average AdSense RPMs. So I'm looking for sites that on this calculator earn $30 a month or more. And usually that works out to being something like 3,000 searches a month with maybe just under $1 CPC on the suggested bid for the contextual tool, or it could be 1,000 searches a month with $4 or $5 CPC. So it really depends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that gives some good criteria for people to look at. And of course, there's lots of different ways, really a lot of different strategies. Some people are happy to build sites that make much less than $30 a month, and some will only try to build sites that make more than $500 a month. So again, it's all part of the strategy that people out there listening that they want to employ and try for themselves. Really will determine the search volume and the value of the keyword that they want to look at. And before I move on here, I did want to ask, we talk about sort of the average maybe that your sites are earning. Do you have a couple of larger sites that are doing really, really well? And if so, about how much are they earning?
Yeah, I have about a dozen sites that are earning about $1,000 a month. I find sort of 10% of the sites that I target tend to get there. And hopefully that'll go up over time. Probably, I would say the top 10% or 20% of my sites earn probably about half of my AdSense revenue.
Okay. And I found, somewhat similar in my own process as well, that for whatever reason, some sites do much better. Either they get more search volume maybe than you expected, or you rank number one in Google very quickly, and they're just valuable keywords. So I found that similar, that I do have a disproportionate amount of my earnings in the top 20% of my sites, or whatever that may be.
And for me, the key is when you do find those sites that are, I sort of look at them as sites that are making over 200 a month. Then I tend to then pick out more sites that are pretty much in that exact same niche, because what I find is it's either making that amount because I'm ranked number one, or it's a combination of being ranked number one and having just an insanely high click-through rate. And just in some niches you have 20-30% click-through rates, and in others you have 1%, and it's really difficult to determine. You just kind of have to take a shotgun approach, really.
Yeah. And I'm glad you actually mentioned that, because a lot of people ask me about click-through rates and what they should expect, or why they're not getting such a good click-through rate. They have all the layouts for AdSense that maybe I've suggested or others have suggested, and I tell them the exact same thing, is that a lot really just depends on your niche, and sometimes it's not even the niche itself, but maybe the exact phrase that people are typing into Google. For whatever reason, they're just not in the mindset to click ads. And there's really no way to know what keywords are going to get high click-through rates until you've experienced it.
There are some things, I guess there are some things you can do, like, avoid tech phrases, because people who are more internet advanced tend to not click ads, tend to be more banner blind.
Right.
And I mean, aside from that, like you said, it seems almost random, but there are niches that you will just consistently get. I'll have some niches that will have, I have 100 sites that all have a click-through rate that's, triple, quadruple, 5 times what my average is.
Yep. I've experienced similar things for sure. So let's move on to your link building process. This is a big deal. Since Penguin, I'm sure, and I know, as you've mentioned, that you've had to change your link building process a little bit. Tell us about your link building process. How are you getting links to these sites?
Well, because I kind of build in mass, the traditional internet marketing link building methods didn't really make sense for me. I'd basically be spending all day, every day building links. They've also become much less effective recently with all the Panda refreshes. So my focus is on owning my links. What I mean by that is I own sites with established link profiles, and I use those sites to link to my AdSense sites. So my focus is finding expired domains, and then I redevelop those domains as like news sites or other sites that are similar to the content of what it used to be before it expired and what all its links are based on. And then I use those to post links to my domains within relevant articles on those sites.
A lot of questions, a lot of follow-up questions there. But first, where do you find these age domains?
They're available for hand registration to anyone who can find them. So I mean, the most common method that people would use to buy these, it would be going to services like FreshDrop, and basically going to GoDaddy auctions and going to all the auction places like Snap Names and stuff like that. The problem is they tend to get quite expensive. You have all these people who are running public blog networks competing for them. So I kind of built a tool that allowed me to find them. I think we can maybe go into that in maybe a future post or something, because it's kind of in depth. But yeah, that's how I find them.
Yeah, absolutely. So that sort of just gives us a taste, I guess, for sure. But as far as the content that's on these expired domains, is this original content that you're putting there? I mean, it sounds like you're having to maintain quite a few sites and adding quite a bit of content to then go out and build links to your other sites.
Yep. So what I'll do is I will add unique articles, and those articles will have all of these sites. They're sort of said that people can contribute articles to the sites, and then within each of the articles there are links, kind of like author bio type links of whoever the author was and that author's other sites. So in essence, at the moment right now, every article I post on one of those sites tends to carry about 15 links. So it can link build 15 of my AdSense sites. And
okay, maybe re-explain how you have 15 links. Are all the links within the article or in the author resource box?
So there will be sort of 5 kind of at the top of the article, sort of explaining that it was contributed. These are the other sites. I might have a few scattered actually within the article if they make sense, if they read well and if they're relevant. Mm-hmm. And then right at the bottom of the article, I'll have another author box. I actually used to do it as resumes. So basically each of these XGLs is what I call them. But each of these sites would have a resume of sort of the contributing authors, and that resume would just be kind of a spun resume, and then it would have examples of written work. But that stopped working after one of the Panda refreshes, so I had to change it up.
So, just to clarify one more time, let's say you have on this expired domain, you have an article about computers, and at the top of the article, you have, contributing to this article, you'll link to 5 different sites. Are those sites related at all to computers, or could they be about really any topic?
They would be related to computers.
Okay.
Again, this is the new way I'm doing it. I really think Google's their spam team has been working like crazy recently, and I really think they're quite close to establishing whether a link is relevant or not. And as soon as they do that, the SEO world will completely change. And I think it'll take much less to rank, but you'll need relevancy, which is another reason I'm sort of trying to put together build my expired domain network as much as possible. And what I do generally, like let's say I find some expired domains might be a politician, for example, right? Mm-hmm. So someone wanted to be mayor in like 2007 or something, and they had their whoever it is for mayor.com domain or whatever, and it expired, and it had links from several newspapers and stuff like that. So I picked that domain up, and what I would do is I would expand it into maybe a news site, which would have several sections, and it might have a bit of a political bias. Mm-hmm. Right? So all the articles I'd post on it, it could have a technology section, it could have a health section, it could have jobs section, all these things, so that it can be relevant to just about any of my sites that I had.
Okay, that makes sense. And so all of the links, at least from within the article themselves, are relevant to what they're linking to.
Yeah, and the articles are, it's good quality, unique articles.
Right. Okay. Very interesting. And how many of these expired domains do you have roughly?
I have a few hundred.
A few hundred.
I have a few hundred, and then there's sort of other sites like different free hosts like Blogspots and TypePads and that type of thing. Mm-hmm. Of those, I have a few thousand. And I can expand on that later as well.
Yeah, no, and like I said, I mean, this could be a very, very long conversation, so I'm going to sort of skim off the top of the information here that we can get to. And just to mention to anybody out there listening, I mean, this isn't exactly white hat techniques that we're talking about here. These are some things, I mean, that you need to be careful with what you're doing. This is what's working well for Hayden, but you need to look at your own business and determine what works for you. So I can't endorse this as saying this is something that everybody should be doing for the business out there. Just to be clear.
Good disclaimer.
Right. So we talked about how Penguin affected your business. And, obviously a lot of your sites were penalized. And let's talk specifically now about how your link building is different now post-Penguin. We talked a little bit about relevancy that you're using. What else are you doing differently with your link building now?
Well, definitely anchor text. So Penguin, for me, it was almost purely an anchor text update. So my anchor text, like I make sure that that no term has more than 10% of the same anchor text. So for example, if I'm targeting a term on whatever cheap headsets, of all the links I put up, cheap headsets will be under 10% of those links. And I would use a lot of what I called sort of partial match anchors. So for example, just headsets or wholesale headsets or discount headsets or good headsets or cheap headsets for sale or cheap headsets online or cheap headsets review, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that is the majority of my links are those partial match anchors.
Okay, so about 10% or less than 10% is exact match, and then another 80% or 70% is, or at least the rest of the majority is partial match. And then do you do some, URL only links or things like that as well?
Yeah, the URL only probably represents about 15%.
Okay.
And then the EMD, the exact match, is 10%. And then the rest is all partial match unless the domain is not an exact match domain, and in which case I would use the brand. So for example, if it is a partial match domain and we wanted to target cheap headsets, but all the cheap headsets exact match domains aren't available, I might have a domain called cheap headset HQ or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then if that's the case, I would make sure I have a lot of brand mentions, which would be the anchor text being cheap headset HQ.
Ah, okay, interesting. And you found that because that is the domain name itself, that does a little bit better?
It's kind of hard to tell, but what I'm going to do is mimic the text profile of a real brand that's just pure white hat SEO, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, the Home Depot gets most of their links as Home Depot or as their URL, and then everything else they get will end up being sort of these partial match anchors that they'll probably have next to no exact match if they don't do SEO. Home Depot's not really a great example, but because they do SEO, but that's sort of that's what Google likes. Google wants these big established brands to dominate the SERPs.
Now, what about deep linking? Are you linking only to your homepage, or how are you mixing that up?
I deep link. Basically, I do this is actually something I've also changed since Penguin, is I do some keyword research, and I'll see if there are other terms that are uncompetitive and able to earn at least $10 a month for me. And if there are, I will create an article on those for those terms as well. And what I do is, a typical site may have, let's say, the first exact match anchor that I wanted was targeted $30 a month, and then maybe 2 to 3 more pages that could make me maybe $10 a month off those terms. And what I do is I link build to half of the relevant sites on my expired domain network. I guess call it a private blog network.
Mm-hmm.
Like the half of those to my homepage, and the other half I'll split randomly between the other pages.
Okay, so, and I don't know if we covered this, but how many links total would you be linking to your domains?
Anywhere between 100 and 200 probably of actual unique domains, not including the free hosts and stuff.
Mm-hmm. And how quickly are you building those? I mean, do you point 100 links right away, or you do that over?
I do 4 a day. So as soon as the first article goes up, I do 4 a day until they're all done.
Okay. It seems like, I mean, it's obviously a very complex system that you have worked out with a lot of different moving pieces, from not only building the sites themselves, but you also have to then maintain your expired domains. You're adding new content so you can build links to your new domains. So it's very complex, and I guess that's sort of what you have to do when you have, a couple thousand sites.
Yeah, it is complex, but at the same time, it's, if I were to compare this to, it's not, you can't even compare it to building with, the traditional methods. In terms of the amount of work, it's much less work when you have this many sites, or even if you have 50 sites, or it's less work. And it's just the links they're relevant, and they're so much higher quality. So, and they'll never get hit. That's really the main thing.
Mm-hmm.
My goal is to eventually have, a couple thousand of these, so that I can rank for pretty much anything. That's always sort of been my goal.
To have a couple of thousand expired domains, is that what you mean?
Yeah, so I have a private blog network
Right.
of a couple thousand quality domains, because all of these
Mm-hmm.
domains are natural. They're minimum PR4. I just got last week a PR7, a real PR7, all edu backlinks.
Wow.
And they're strong links. And, my goal would be to rank for SEO or hosting. And that's my ambitious goal.
Wow.
But you just can't do that. You could probably spend 50 grand a month, buying links or renting links,
Mm-hmm.
or you could do this.
Okay, now let's sort of bring it back to reality for some of our listeners, perhaps. There's a lot of people listening out there that, let's be honest, there's no chance they're going to go out and be able to get a couple of hundred expired domains and build up this network and build up this software that you've done. So not everybody's going to be as successful as you. Do they have any hope using traditional link building methods? And what would you recommend as far as link building if they don't have sort of the network that you have?
Like I said, I mean, there are a lot of, I still sort of would put the focus then in keyword research, because in my opinion, a lot of the link building methods that people do are unnecessary. They're not really doing anything. The fact is, if they have a domain with content, with good title matches, and that has, at least a partial match for the keyword, you can rank without a single link. So my focus, if you don't have anything like that, my focus would always be on keyword research. If you can pick up even 1 or 2 expired domains, that's much better than, in my opinion, having 10,000 forum profiles. That's a lot better than having 10,000 blog comments. Just having 1 link on those, right? And again, it's all about sort of recycling your link juice, right? So that those 2 sites that you own could link out to thousands of sites in the future. So just in terms of return on investment, there's no other alternative really for me that I use.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you are saying, I do want to clarify, that it's still possible, certainly, to make money with niche sites if you don't have your own sort of expired domain network.
I'm saying it's possible to do it without a single link.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So. And I will agree. I mean, certainly there's keywords that you cannot target without links, but there are still keywords out there that you can rank for actually fairly easily with no links perhaps, but even just a few, not even necessarily very high quality links. You still can do that. I still have sites that are ranking with very few backlinks. It's all about the keyword research and really understanding what the competition is within Google itself. So I would really like to spend a lot more time sort of digging into your process and what you're using for expired domains. But is there any advice for anybody out there that's trying to get started in this business right now?
Yeah, I can give a bunch of advice. I guess the first thing would be, if you're trying to get started, you're sort of just interested, start. That's the most important thing. Start out with 1 site, work at it, fail and learn. I mean, maybe you'll get lucky and make money right away, but most of the time you just have to start and work iteratively, and focus, really focus on your keyword research. I just can't stress that any more. I would say follow Spencer's advice regarding the keyword research. I would suggest that you use some kind of calculator, earning calculator on your sites before buying, and I would suggest you base that on the contextual targeting tool. That made a huge difference for me.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, if you're just getting started, I think that's probably the most important thing. And I guess maybe expect that the site won't necessarily last forever. And if something ever happens, don't give up. Come back and do it better and earn more.
Absolutely, that's some great advice. To keep at it. That's been a big thing for me, is that I've learned from my past mistakes and I've improved and done things better to either build new sites and do them completely differently, sort of how you're doing as well. And again, to bring it home, you say you have about 400 sites that are doing well now post Penguin, and how are those sites doing again as far as earning?
Probably I have about 350 that already have AdSense. I think there may be 50 that I haven't added it to yet, and they're making a bit over 1,000 a day.
Very nice. So $1,000 a day, Google AdSense, all from niche sites. And again, this is June 2012. After Penguin, I know there's been sort of mass hysteria out there about everybody was hit with Penguin.
Yeah. Well, if I can just add sort of one more thing, I think anybody can do this. It's a matter of working at it and not giving up. That's, there's no magic bullet that, you can't immediately start and have a 4-hour work week or anything like that. You have to work at it and you have to not give up. And I think anyone can do it, and anyone can make a full-time income and eventually, work far less than they'd have to and be their own boss.
That's some great advice. And I do want to ask about the future a little bit. Obviously, Google is going to have other updates besides Penguin. They're going to be always changing their formula. I mean, do you believe that this is still going to be a viable business model down the road in the future?
Absolutely. I would say Google has done, they've been a real pain to us, but they have done in this year and in really the last few months, they have made huge steps in improving the quality of their results, in that I wouldn't put it past them, like I said, to have relevancy become a factor. So try to follow their guidelines as much as possible. And you mentioned kind of black hat techniques. So what I'm doing, picking up expired domains and stuff, there's nothing wrong with that at all. I wouldn't even consider that. I wouldn't consider that black hat in any way. There's no lies. There's no laws broken. It's fine. I used to do a lot more black hat stuff, and I would consider things like forum profiles, spun content, blog comments. Those really are black hat. That's, it's not a very advanced black hat, but that's intended to game the system, intended to trick Google into thinking that links exist when really they don't, or that unique content exists when really it doesn't. So I would say, the niche sites work really well. Focus on finding the right niche and doing the keyword research. So I'm Canadian, so I say niche. I try to say niche for the American audiences. But and I for sure think it's going to be a long-standing business model. It's just over time we're going to have to be more and more what Google wants this to be, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the reality is that the sites that you're creating, with time, they still are. The content there is good quality articles that you're putting on your sites, correct?
Yeah, the reason I said if a site is earning me $30 a month, I'll give them minimum 5 articles. The reason I do that is that's sort of my this is worth it filter. And when a site tends to, I also have a script that tells me, I have a rank checker that tells me when sites hit the number 1 position. And when that happens, you tend to get a lot of competitors reporting your site. So they'll go and report it as spam just so that you can get you out of there. If you have a one-page site with not great content and a generic logo, it's gonna get lost. And I've tend to have found that if you leave it like that, generally being first for more than a month or two, you're gone, and the site is de-indexed. But if at that point you make the site a good site, a unique logo, maybe add like a Google Plus or Facebook page or something, and 5 good articles that provide value to the user, that site will stand the test of time. Your competitors won't even report it as spam, let alone, will it pass the manual review, because it isn't spam.
Those are some great points that anybody listening out there, should take note. Again, whether or not you're going to try to replicate the exact business model or not, I think there's some great points that you've shared with us here that a lot of people can take and apply into their own business. I'm going to sort of leave it at that. Again, I would love to spend another hour or two just talking about either link building or even your keyword research strategies and all those different things. And I think I'm going to have you back at least to contribute on the blog in the future, and perhaps maybe an additional podcast down the road. We'll see. But are there any last parting words that you'd like to leave with us, Hayden?
Not really. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm eager to, provide a couple other posts or elaborate on my strategies. I mean, they can get a little bit in depth, but no, I'm totally eager to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I appreciate your time very much. So again, anybody listening out there, Hayden Miyamoto is doing very well with niche sites, and this is even post-Penguin. There's a lot of things that I'm going to go and apply to my own business as well. And if you're listening to this podcast over on my blog at nichepursuits.com, there will be a post with some additional links about things that we've talked about, and some other things that I'm going to link to as well. So again, Hayden, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.